Well, good afternoon. Thank you for attending this webinar. It's our last webinar from our fourth webinar cycle entitled, Is Sustainable the New Healthy? Before we start, I will share a few information about how this webinar runs. For further viewing, we are recording this session, so if you do not wish to appear, you can turn off your cameras. Our speakers will have a 15-minute presentation followed by Q&A, so feel free to post your questions in the Teams chat. This webinar should be finished by 5:30 p.m. Lisbon time. I am Cecília Franco. Me and my colleague Catarina Vasconcelos, we will be our host for this afternoon. We are both nutritionists and health and well-being specialists at Food for Sustainability. So, in our first webinar in this webinar cycle, we addressed the impact of our food choices and eating patterns on the environment, health, and society. We asked, what does entails in a transition to a sustainable and healthy diet? Do we have the appetite for change? Are we nutritionists doing everything we can to promote sustainable and healthy eating habits? So last week we explored practical examples of how to promote the concept of a sustainable and healthy diet through school meals, public food procurement, and food education. We asked, can school meals impact and promote an effective change? How can we educate and motivate the next generations to eat healthy and sustainable? And today, our last webinar, we will finish this cycle with a focus on product and services development, willing to understand the main challenges and innovative solutions companies are developing to embrace a sustainable food transition. And this leads us to ask a question. We have been talking about sustainable healthy diets, but do consumers actually value sustainable products? And how do we communicate to them? So at EUFIC, which is the European Food Information Council, they conducted 2 studies to find out how to best communicate about healthy and sustainable diets to consumers in several European countries. So in this first study, the consumers told us they wanted information about nutrition contents and environment's impacts on food packaging. And how do they want the information to be presented? So in this second study, they examined the effect of different types of information on the consumers in their shopping choices and behaviors. So the consumers would be presenting with either a prototypical nutrition label and environmental label, a general recommendation about healthy and sustainable diets, or no information at all in the control group. So the conclusions, having labels helped those who had more knowledge about healthy eating and sustainable diets to make better choices compared to no labels. Having general recommendations about healthy and sustainable diets helped those with less knowledge about healthy eating compared to having no recommendations. And from the usefulness perspective, consumers rated the nutrition label as the more useful, followed by the environmental label, and last, the healthy and sustainable recommendations. So this may tell us that information is better perceived by the consumer if it's already been filtered and presented in a standardized label determined by an external body. And also, the consumers are willing to pay more for those labels. So they want an authority which they can trust for those recommendations, for those labels, for that information. So let's meet our speakers for today. 3 speakers. We will start our session with Stéphane Cantais. He will present us the valuable and healthy losses. He holds a master's degree in food technologies and processing. He manages and coordinates a large portfolio of research and technology projects at Frulact, ensuring the company's sustainable growth. The main axes of the innovation projects are the naturally and clean labeling, a better nutrition, sustainable and efficient processes, and new customer experiences. Welcome, Stéphane. Next, we will hear Tânia Calçada from Continente. She will present us Continente Food Lab and other food innovation challenges. She is currently managing an innovation area in MC SONAE, where her team applies agile methodologies to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of companies' innovation projects, such as fast-moving consumer goods product innovation projects, now focusing on food innovation. She also leads the business development activities of Continente Labs, including the cashierless store and the related consumer online community. Welcome, Tânia. And last, our last speaker, Rui Catalão. He will present us setting new standards for sustainability in the food sector. He is the founder of Kitchen Dates, a food literacy project that helps people and organizations adopt more sustainable practices and reduce their impact on the planet through food. Among his best-known initiatives is the opening of the first bean-free restaurant in Portugal, using only locally sourced and organically produced ingredients. So welcome also, Rui. I will stop sharing my screen. I will pass the floor to Stéphane. We would like to hear your presentation.
Thank you. I will share my screen.
Perfect. We can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. So thank you for the opportunity to present my company, but also what we are doing in terms of innovation and sustainability at Frulact. So I will try in a few slides to present you what is the innovation and sustainability for Frulact, and also present some practical exercise and practical project we are working on. So first, Frulact, I don't know if everyone knows Frulact, but we are a B2B company, so we are only working for business company, for food industry company, and we are an innovative company to solve issues in the industry and to supply and provide added value ingredients. Frulact started in a garage, so it was like a startup in 1987. And today it's not anymore a startup. We are an international company with 7 countries and 12 units in the world. We have more than 35 years of history. We are now the third food preparation supplier for dairy and non-dairy industry. We have more than 900 people working for Frulact. Our turnover is about 200 millions. And we have products sold in more than 40 countries right now. So fast growing. Basically, we have 3 business units. We are providing 3 different solutions to the food industry. We are providing first food preparation or preparation, because we can use cereals, we can use chocolate, we can use different ingredients. And the idea is that these preparations are mixed later on by the industry in different products, mainly yogurt, but it can be also ice creams or pastry, different type of products. We have also a unit which is dedicated to flavors, and a new unit which is plant-based, so working only on cereal transformation to provide plant-based solution and concentrates. Concerning the sustainability, I'm also part of the sustainability committee at Frulact. So we have 7 goals. We have identified 7 goals for Frulact where we think we can have an impact. The first one is zero hunger. Then we have different ones, but in terms of innovation and food or ingredient solution, we are focusing on zero hunger and also the nutrition part. We have defined a value chain for sustainability at Frulact, starting from the nature, because we are using natural ingredients like fruits, like cereals. Everything we are transforming is natural at the beginning. We are not doing chemicals. We have different partnerships, and this is very important for Frulact and for a B2B company as us, because we have clients, but we have also suppliers, and it's important to get and to strengthen the partnerships, to have good relationships and also a good business. In the middle, you can see Fruit People, which is the people of Frulact, which is the heart of Frulact and the engine of Frulact. Then we are speaking about innovation, not only on products, also in transformation and organization. And the last point is our product and markets and everything about logistic and supply chain, which is quite important for us too. Concerning the innovation as Frulact, so I'm managing the innovation part. Our main goal is to make added value for consumers and consumer or customers. We have the ambition to be a leader in food and plant-based ingredient solution in few years. We are working from the field to consumer, so it means we are working directly from a raw material, which can be a strawberry, for example, to transform in and to be able to provide to the final consumer a safe product and a good product. We have 4 different topics to work and axes in terms of innovation strategy. We have the first one, which is natural, ensure, and new experience, which is more related to product development. Then we have preserve and enhance quality and property of the ingredients, working more on different technologies to preserve and to maintain the natural benefit of the ingredients we are using. New market for existing capabilities. The idea is to touch also new markets than the standard and the classical for Frulact, which is the dairy companies. And circular food system, which is a new axis for us, which is quite important because Frulact has an own ecosystem, not only in Portugal, but around our factories. We have different partners. And we have also to think about the future, because when we are speaking about natural ingredient and natural sourcing, it's quite important to think about the future and how to provide products, even when we will not have or we will have problems with meteor or with something else. So it's quite important for us too. When we are crossing innovation and sustainability at Frulact, we identify 3 different topics and projects. So first is the clean labeling, that we can also speak about naturality. Then sugar reduction, which is linked to the nutrition part, and losses valorization and upcycling, which is quite interesting too, to get new ingredient to our portfolio. So concerning the clean labeling and naturality, as you can see, it's quite important for us. It represents today more than 14% of our sales worldwide, with a big focus in US and Canada and also Europe. We have a big increase of this kind of product. We are not leader on that because we are working for industrials, but it shows that industry is moving also to clean labeling and to natural solutions. We have also an internal definition of clean labeling to define what is a clean label product for us, because there is no regulation worldwide on clean label. So there is different type of definition, but for Frulact, a product which is clean, it's a product that use ingredients recognized and accepted by final consumer. We can find it in a kitchen, for example. What we are doing for clean labeling and naturality. So this is an example of one project we worked on, and you can find some product on the market with this kind of solutions. The idea was to replace all type of stabilizers that we can use in standard product, like modified starch, pectin, gums, things like that, with E-code, and which is additives. How we did it, we use functional fibers and flours. So instead transforming this kind of raw materials to pectin or gums or modified starch, we are using the natural ingredients like citrus fibers coming from the fruit juice industry. So it's also upcycling, it's also valorization of different industries. And we can also use seeds and cereal flour from other type of industries like cereal industries. For sure, when we are speaking about clean labeling and naturality, we need to accept a certain variability more than a standard product. And we need also to think differently the formulation and the process. So we have to identify new equipments, and this is the main constraint. We have to identify new equipments for us. and new equipment for the industry to potentialize the nature benefits and to functionalize this kind of new ingredients. In terms of health and nutrition, it's very good because we have clean product, but not only, because as we are using fibers or proteins to stabilize food proportion or products, we are also adding some nutritional compounds to the final product. So just a result on the right, which is showing that we can find and we can achieve the same performance of the product in terms of food pieces with something very clean and very natural. Concerning sugar reduction and nutrition, so we all know that we have to reduce sugar, and not only the added sugar and the free sugars that we can find on a product, but also the sugar from the fruit naturally present. Fruit has 7 to 10% sugar in general, so we have a big impact on a final product. And as we are transforming fruits, this is a concern for Frulact. Then vegetal protein is also something growing. It's already a basis, but we have to work on vegetal proteins, which is the new proteins and the sustainable proteins for the future. So we have a specific business unit to work on that, but it's also interesting to work on different type of sourcings. Concerning this project, just an example of one product we developed was a chocolate pudding with cocoa fruit pulp, which can reduce the sugar, providing some mouthfeel and also balancing the sugar profile of the product. And cocoa fruit pulp is an upcycling ingredient from the cocoa industry, which is also not bad. We use also flaxseed flour and barley proteins in this type of prototypes to enrich in proteins, so barley proteins from the beer industry and flaxseed flour from the oil industry. So as you can see, we are using different type of a new type of ingredients coming from different other industries, which are more or less co-product or byproducts today, but we can find a good way to use it as a functionality. It can be for health or for functionality as texture or sweets. The main limitation for this kind of project is, of course, there is no certification or regulation, mainly in Europe. I would speak for Europe. Taste, color, and solubility, as I said, for clean labeling and naturality, we have to accept a certain variability and a different taste. So it's also our role to work on that and to provide a good consumer experience with these new ingredients. And also the availability of the raw material, which can be quite challenging in terms of sourcing. Last point on losses, valorization, and upcycling. As you can see on the left, we have a lot of organic waste at Frulact because we are transforming cereal and fruits, so it's not something rocket science that we have organic waste. So the idea today is to revalorize the waste we have. So we have 1/3 which is coming from the fruit process. When we are doing fruit puree, we have for sure co-products like seeds, like fibers that we can use later on in a product. And also 2/3 from the cereal transformation for beverage and plant-based products. This slide is just to show what's happening in the market. So we have this example in US that there is a new food association, which is Upcycled Food Association, with a certification of products and ingredients for the industry, which is quite interesting. There is already a good definition of what is an upcycled food or ingredients. And we can find already on the market some final product, as you can see on the right, concerning better sugars. It's the example of KitKat using cocoa fruit pulp. Fibers, new fibers coming from the beer industry. So you all know the dresch. We can use it in a pastry industry. Proteins, we all know the okara from the soy, which is also a co-product at the beginning, and also protein from barley. And the cocoa fruit pulp, which is not only a sweet enhancer, but can be also something very interesting in terms of flavonoid. What we are doing at Frulact concerning losses, valorization, and upcycling. So we have defined 3 steps, and we will touch or attack the 2 first one. The first one is the first transformation. So we have to dry basically and green what we have as a co-product to be able to deliver protein and fiber flours. So which can be interesting to enrich new product or pastry products or in the yogurt. The second step will be to have a little bit more natural transformation like fermentation or enzymatic treatment to be able to provide new things and new sweeteners, for example, coming from the co-products we have in our factories. A few examples about what we can work and what we are working. Pineapple residues. It's quite interesting because there is more than 20% fibers in it. Kiwi seeds, we can find also a big amount of proteins, so it can be very interesting for food and nutrition. Apricot seed, also rich in protein and fibers. And our co-product from Oatvita, which is the plant-based unit, is also rich in protein and fiber. So what we can see is that all the co-products we can find in the industry are rich in fibers and protein. So it will be something interesting to work on that and to use to enrich nutritional products. Just to conclude, working on waste valorization is for us a virtuous circle because we can touch different type of objectives and will allow us to realize our ambition in terms of be a leading company in natural ingredients. The first one is we can provide cleaner product, we can provide also healthier products, reduce industrial waste, which is also good for the planet, and reinforce our partnerships. Thank you. That's it. So hope it's interesting for you.
Thank you so much, Stéphane. It occurs to me, it's something we do here in Food for Sustainability. We are either looking for or trying to search new ways of subproduct valorization. So that's what in Frulact you are doing. But we can perceive that as we can say as a sustainable measure in order to value something that otherwise would be a waste, food waste, correct? Yeah. Do you know if the consumer can also perceive that? Meaning, how do we communicate to the consumer the benefits of using that kind of byproduct in the food industry?
Yeah, we did some market research internally, so with our means. And we know that after the COVID, all the consumers are more also aware about the food lost. We know that we need also, and we have constraints in terms of resource, in terms of sourcing of ingredients, and in terms of nutritional ingredient and food. So we have to reduce the waste, and this is something we are feeling. And from the final consumer, but also our customer, which are food industry and big companies. There is a specific concern at this moment to try to revalorize things and to use food waste and to reduce also our waste.
That's correct.
Because we have a limited resources, so
it's true. It's the circular economy concept. You know, we have to use everything in between, otherwise we will be wasting our resources. One question popped from our participants, considering it was related to what I asked, if the consumers value the origin of the food ingredients, and if they do the companies to which you work ask for preparations of local fruits? That would be interesting. Also to add value to your losses, meaning if in Frulact the products you use are also having into consideration the origin. Yes.
Yes, for sure. And it's something we are working for a few years now. It's upcycling, and food waste is more recent. But local sourcing origin is quite interesting, and we are working for 10 years now. So we have already some sourcing coming from different and specific countries. The main difficulty is that we are in an open world, so it's difficult to find the good balance in between the price and the origin. we work a lot on different concepts and projects concerning specific varieties or specific location of the fruits, but it's something very difficult because the final consumer is not ready to accept a certain variability and not to have the product on the shelves. So sometimes we have also to educate the consumer to accept that one day they can find the product, one day they cannot find the product because they want a strawberry yogurt, the same strawberry yogurt along the year, but it's not possible if we are thinking about local and specific varieties.
It's true. I mean, it's called seasonality for some reason. We forgot that as soon as we moved to the cities, we started getting our food from the supermarket and the groceries and forgot about the food's origin completely. And we fought for the globalization, and now we are getting to the chance to reap the fruits, which are not so positive, naming the consequences of getting products that traveled 5,000 kilometers from the other side of the planet and having so much a carbon footprint. So we have to rethink our eating habits for sure. And one last question, it occurred to me that although there's already an upcycled food association, I believe you said there was some regulation missing in Europe, at least.
Especially in Europe, because in US we can find this food association, which is regrouping different industrial and also consumers association. So it's something proof or recognized now. In Europe, we don't have this right now. So we have the Nutri-Score, we have different type of scores. But at this moment, upcycling is something quite new. So it's more a storytelling than a specific regulation or certification. But having a certification or a regulation will also clear the things and define what is an upcycled ingredient of food.
Correct. So there's this gray zone still occurring in this area. We actually have one question from our next speaker. Tânia, would you like to ask your question yourself so it gets recorded?
Hello. Yes, of course. I was listening to your presentation. First, thank you for the presentation. Very interesting. And you talked about replacing artificial additives by upcycled ingredients, and you mentioned citrus fiber. And in the path that we have been doing to clean label our products, we found that these upcycled ingredients are more expensive, and it's difficult to convince the customers to pay more for something that they don't really understand. And this probably is just a transition phase, but how can we cope with this transition? Do you have any ideas? On this?
I think there is an important point when we are speaking about upcycling. We have also to identify simple technologies. If we are doing different steps, 10 steps of transformation to have something functional to replace some additives, it would not make sense. So we have also to think not only in terms of sourcing and ingredients, but also in terms of technology. When I speak about drying, it's something very known in the industry. So it's something not very expensive. So if we have sourcing, which is normally less expensive than standard product, if we apply a simple technology, normally we will find there is a good balance. But for sure, at the beginning, it will be expensive. And if the consumer is willing to pay more for upcycling, I'm not sure, but we have to add something else, like nutrition, for example, can be a good way to sell a product better if we bring something different with more proteins or more fibers. We have also to explain that it's not only a stabilizer, it's also fibers.
It's true. I mean, this is we have to talk to the marketing department so they can, which is also to communicate, as I said in the in the beginning of the webinar, the consumer is willing to pay more for a label that clarifies this information for him. So considering that's not something that is yet to be regulated, maybe in the future the consumer will be seeing that kind of label using upcycled products in their products, and it will be valued maybe for the consumer. We are yet to see that. Tânia, do you know this Frulact in SONAE?
Yeah, we are
the company.
We are one of the customers.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I thought
Not
so.
directly, it's through our partner that produces the yogurts, and but yeah, we have some products developed by Frulact.
I thought so. That's good to know. So would you like to present, to do your presentation now, Tânia?
Of course, I'm going to share my screen. You should be seeing my screen. Yes,
we can see your screen. Yes, working.
So from your introduction, we talked. You talked a little bit about, or asking about, what are the ingredients that we consider essential to promote health and sustainability. And we in my presentation, I'm going to, well, at least try to answer to that that question. Actually, I would say that in the first slide, I'm answering it already. So consumers want healthy and sustainable, but they don't want to compromise on taste, on convenience, or price. They want it all. So they want the best for them, the best for the planet. They don't give up on pleasure of eating, and they don't have time to prepare the food, and they don't want to pay more for it. It's very difficult, and our mission and our, I mean, we as the representatives of the food industry, we must find the solutions, and they are not yet there. With everything is very, very difficult, and but the consumer wants that, and we must continue to look for it. What we are doing here in Continente, we created this platform, Continente Food Lab, that allow us to test new food concepts in the Portuguese market. We want to find these concepts, these food concepts, that embrace or address all, or at least a part of those 5 challenges that I presented in the beginning. This platform is present in several channels to reach the highest number of customers possible. We have a Food Lab corner in 10 hypermarkets, and the Food Lab corner is something like what you can see in the picture. Is a space in the central corridor of our main stores that has the products and some explanation about the products. We also are in the Continent Online, on Instagram, and we have a dedicated website. If you find look for Continente Food Lab in Google, you will find the website with all the information. And this in this Continente Food Lab, we want to launch products, innovative products, or products that incorporate the new concepts of food. We of course start with an inspiration. Then when we want to launch this type of products, or to address this trend or this customer need, then we look for the products, and then when we find the products, then we ask for information to the brand that is producing it, ask for samples, etc., and then we produce this business case to find it if this is has any points on being in the stores. There are only 10 stores, but even though we must do this business case. Then we taste the products and decide if the product is welcome to our range or not. Then we test, we close the commercial conditions, etc., with not so much focus on if it's profitable or not, because it's not the point. And then we put the product on sale for 3 to 6 months and see if the market is willing to receive that product or not. Of course, in the meanwhile, we communicate a lot, we do tasting sessions in the stores, we distribute samples, we communicate on the social media, etc. And all this is being done in Continente. Most of you may know Continente. Continente is the main brand of MC SONAE, which is the largest retailer in Portugal. Continente has about, it's not correct, the number on top, we have 342 Continentes, but MC SONAE has a lot more with the other type of stores that are not food retail. We are also the biggest employer in Portugal and the first food retail chain that appears in Portugal. In Continente Food Lab, we have 3 years of history, and we launched already 41 products. We started 3 years ago with 6 products, and then we introduced a new product every now and then, and remove from our corners some of the products. And of course, I'm not going to talk about all these products. I selected 3 products from our range that we considered successful. And for successful, we are going to talk about what is successful. And I select these 3 products because they have sustainability claims and also health claims that I want to discuss with you and evaluate on that 5 criteria of what the customer is willing to have products with all the taste, the convenience, the price, and also the health and the sustainability. Starting with the Beyond Burger, we launched the Beyond Burger in our first set of products 3 years ago. It is an hamburger that's mimic meat. It mainly focus on flavor, and on the main claim is sustainability. But many people in the beginning, and even today, they think about it because it's plant-based as an healthy product. Well, it's not so healthy. It has 18 ingredients to meet the flavor of meat with plants. It's it's not produced by Continente, of course, but they have to add lots of ingredients. And of course, in terms of fat and saturated fat, etc., is similar to meat. So it's not more healthy than meat. Of course, is more sustainable, and they claim that they have, for instance, less 90% of gas emission to produce a Beyond Burger compared with beef. Well, it's tasty. There are people that cannot distinguish from beef burger Beyond Burger, and is very convenient. It's okay, but what about the price? It's not so affordable. It's almost the same price of high or premium beef, which is not very affordable. But we think it's a success. Of course, it sold something, and it made a trend. In 3 years ago, when we launched Beyond Burger in Continente, there was no category to introduce the product. We don't even know where in the supermarket could it go. And now we have more than 30 references in our catalog that somehow mimic the meat. Of course, some of them really mimic the other not so much, but there are several brands, including our own brand, the Continente brand. We have several products that are copying the Beyond Burger. So we believe that it was a successful product because it made it happen a trend. The second product that I want to talk about is about this seaweed snacks. We launched it early this year, and they have health and convenience claims. Of course, on the health part, not so much. Actually, maltose is the first ingredient, and they have a Nutri-Score C, so not so healthy, okay, but it's not very bad also. Of course, it's we can use sustainable claims because the base ingredient, or the main, not the first one, but the main ingredient is algae. And algae actually captures carbon in the sea without using fertile land. So we can see that on the sustainable branch, it's okay. And also this brand contributes to social causes. The product tastes very good. You should try it. And it meets completely the convenience trend with snacks, healthy snacks. But what about the price? It's very expensive. But people buy it anyways, and the product is being very, very successful. But is not very democratic. So we are looking for solutions. Actually, we believe that algae may be a path to go, but there are not so much products that deliver on the five components of the 5 ingredients that must be in the product. So we are looking for ideas or products to produce the new products for our brands or for Food Lab with algae that can meet all of them. For last, of course, you have heard about the launch of products with insects last summer. It's almost 1 year ago. We were the first food retail company to launch this type of products in the Portuguese market. We believe it was very successful. I'm going to show you some data later on. They are quite healthy. I'm putting here these mealworm bites that are cereals and fruits with insect protein, mealworm protein, and we can say that they are sustainable because they emit less greenhouse gases. To produce the insects, we need less water, etc. And the product tastes good. It's very tasty. But when we think about insects, and eating insects, there are some disgust. That is hard to overcome, at least here in Europe and in the Western world. They are quite a convenience, but what about the price? The price. Yeah, it's quite expensive. The first price that I present here is not these bars, are the snacks, the dehydrated insects that with salt or with pepper, and they are not very democratic, at least for now. But they were successful. They instantly led to mediatic attention, and the consumers purchased the insects in the beginning. The products within since the first week. We can see here in your left hand side of the slide a graph that shows us the repetition ratio of each product of each of these cereal bars with insects, and also a median of the repetition ratio of the other innovations in the cereal bar category in the dashed line. And we can see that in the first weeks, it was huge. The people bought and repeated the purchase right from the beginning. Of course, after a while, it's not so much, and but we can see that the repetition ratio is quite good for a product that is has problems with the culture, our culture. So we would like that. We think this is a successful product that only has 1 year in the market. And on top of that, they gave us lots of attention to Continente as a brand that presented this type of products from the future to Portuguese consumers. But after these 3 products that we feel that are successful products, we think that it's still a challenge to find the ideal solutions. We must continue looking for ideal solutions. For that, we are building a platform to develop disruptive food products to our own brands that meet all the 5 ingredients. And we are using design thinking to understand the consumer needs, their wants, and we want to partnership with food industry and academia and in some projects. You are very welcome if you have any ideas or want to partnership with us to make the future of food. Let's work together. Thank you. If you have any questions,
yeah, there are some questions. Yes, I have to tell you. I mean, this is something that occurs to me and maybe some other of the participants, maybe some other consumers. Consumers are hard to please. Yes, I mean it's the first message in your presentation. They are hard to please. They want the price, they want the convenience. And at the same time, we want healthy, we want sustainable. But and we are looking at that for that in a supermarket aisle. But we might not get that there. We might get that if we go down to the basics. I mean, Rui might be, I believe when he was seeing your presentation, he was saying, why not go package-free products? I mean, the real deal, the real food with no packaging, the raw materials. I mean, I don't mean the insects, because consumers of those insect bars. What I'm saying is we are actually trying to find the perfect, healthy, sustainable product when the healthy, sustainable products might be right by our side in a local market, in a food garden. Como é que se diz? Horta? Falhou-me o termo.
Yeah, food garden, I believe. Yeah.
Vegetable garden.
Yes. So, vegetable garden, correct. Thank you so much, Rui. So, we have to rethink our eating habits from the beginning. But yes, convenience is something that we need our days. We have to have convenience. Change our daily habits. Maybe I will say something which is arguable. Maybe we have to work less and spend more time in the kitchen. Maybe we have to work out less and cook more. This is just food for thoughts. But yes, let's consider those products, those packaged products, those test before invest attempts Continente Food Lab is trying to make. One question: is it hard to have healthy and sustainable in the same label? Because we saw there the seaweed snacks, they were considered sustainable, but yet the main ingredient was a sugar. So can we have both?
I believe yes, but we have to be very creative, and we need to work together with people that love to be in the lab to find these right recipes. Because if maltose was not the first ingredient, the product is not going to be so tasty, and it will taste like algae raw or something. The sweetness is what makes the difference to the taste. We have tasted other products that are quite healthy, but they don't even pass the taste tests inside the company, because nobody will buy it again. They may buy the first time, but the repetition rate is not good. So, of course, there are technologies that must be used to improve the taste while keeping the products healthy. And Stéphane mentioned some of that in his presentation. And we need partners that know the real thing, that how food works, how technology works, to improve taste without adding sugar, without adding more fats, or without adding more salt. Because if the product is tasty, probably it has a lot of one of them, and we are looking for solutions that we have the taste without these three villains. But it's possible. Yeah. I lost you, Cecilia. It's just me. You are listening to me?
Yes.
Yeah.
We just lost Cecilia.
Yeah, we just lost Cecilia.
Yeah, we can hear you. I was saying that would be a $1 million solution to find the healthy and sustainable product. And by the way, package-free product. And so there's yet to be a regulation about the sustainability claim. I believe so. But yet those Beyond Burgers and all those other products, they claim to be more sustainable, considering the production of the product itself, less gas emissions, whatever. Let's say that we have to package those products and we have to bring them to our country as they can be produced elsewhere. We need to have to label it sustainable. So how can a package, a super packaged product be considered sustainable? We have to think about that. Are those numbers also in the equation when we label it in the marketing department, for example?
Not yet, and we are not really communicating that the product is sustainable on that issue, the packaging. Of course, we are working a lot on the packaging issues, and what I can say to you is that we have been trying, and you will hear about initiatives to remove the packages, but we must compromise on convenience. We did these tests not in food, but in household products, so in Go Natural, that has detergents in bulk being sold, and is not a successful thing in sales because it's hard. You have to take the bottle and wash yourself the bottle, and you have to remember, and you have your truck of your car full of bottles, or you have to go by bus or bicycle with the bottles empty to your job, and then go to the supermarket to fill it up. It's not convenient. It's not convenient. It's very hard. Or it can be convenient, like you just take all the empty bottles and leave them in the store. Someone will wash it, and then you can grab one and reuse it. But that is not going to be affordable because someone has to wash it, and that person needs to have a paycheck in the end of the month. So it's a compromise in online. So
I know someone who has the solutions for us, and he's here with us. Wants to talk, but before we pass the floor to Rui, wait just a second. I know you want to talk, really. We have one last question, and for Tânia, can you please tell us what product did you develop but had little consumer support, and you had to remove from the market? One simple example, something that did not work at all.
Did not work at all. We had, for instance, the rosemary water. One of the products that we launched, not in the beginning, but I don't know, after half a year, 1 year of project, was rosemary water, which is water with very natural rosemary extracts, and has healthy claims to your mental health. And it was a problem to sell it, and it was not so sustainable because they were glass bottles that came from UK, and very complicated and very expensive also. And we didn't continue it with the products, and the taste was
it's so easy to go
yeah. But we believed a lot in the product, but in the end, it didn't sell at all.
Thank you. So, Rui, you have a lot to say on these matters, right? Would you like to do your presentation? We talk when you finish.
Yeah. I might maybe better start with the presentation and then go on with it. Otherwise, I might not have time enough for my presentation. But I hope we can get back to that question about convenience and all those things.
Yes, for sure.
On the stretch after the presentation, because there's plenty to be unpacked on that.
It's true.
Let me just put my presentation on. Just a second. I think my computer is very slow because it's very, very hot. But I think you can see it.
It's working.
Yeah, perfect.
Go ahead.
So Well, hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. I'm going to be telling you our story at Kitchen Dates, but I'll also be walking you through our vision for new standards of sustainability in the food sector. I'll be focusing a bit more on what can be done at, let's say, a restaurant level, but in fact, many of these principles I'll be talking about can be applied to other businesses along the food chain. And I'd like to start with my personal story. I know this is isn't very conventional, but my sustainability journey isn't also very conventional. I stumbled upon it back in 2015 when I was living in the Netherlands with Maria, my wife. I can tell you that at the time I had no concerns about sustainability. I was eating in a very traditional Portuguese way with too many animal products, with maybe too many processed foods as well. And at the time as well, our professional lives had nothing to do with food. I was a marketing manager for a sports management agency, and Maria worked for a major airline in their in the headquarters. So one day, we were doing our regular shopping at your average Amsterdam supermarket, and we finally decided to read through the ingredient list of the bread that we normally bought there. It looked more or less like the one you see in the picture on the left side. By the way, the one on the right side was one of the last breads I baked myself. And we were shocked to see not only the amount of ingredients, and traditionally, if you think about bread, you think about flour, water, and even salt is optional. I mean, it makes everything taste nicer, but you can even make bread with just flour and water without any salt. But we saw on the list many things that we wished we didn't see there, including sugar, several additives, several preservatives. And even though, I mean, you would say, okay, you know that many processed foods have these ingredients in them, we never came to this realization until we did that simple gesture of looking at it. But that realization made us fully rethink our eating habits. And we started with these processed foods. So the ones that came in packages and had ingredients, so we could just read the ingredient list and see, maybe I don't want to eat these anymore. But we ended up totally reshaping our diets in a way that I never thought to be possible. And the more we were sharing this new way of eating with friends, the more we got questioned about it. And there was this one couple, they're from Cyprus, so they have, culturally speaking, they're very similar to us, and they enjoy having long conversations around the table with foods. And one time they were finishing a meal at our place, and they challenged us to open our apartment for other people to come in and enjoy the food the same way they were doing it. I have to say it sounded really crazy at first, especially because Maria and I were both kind of introverts, and the idea of having strangers at my dining table was a bit scary. But still, we decided to give it a try and see how it went. And this first experience was so great that we kept on repeating it and repeating it and repeating. And first we did it in Amsterdam, that's where everything started, but then we decided to move back to Lisbon in 2017, and we picked it up again here. And the idea was simple, to bring strangers around the table to enjoy a 100% plant-based meal, fully prepared from scratch, using mostly, and pay attention to this word because I'm going to come back to this, mostly organic, mostly local, and mostly seasonal ingredients. And it's time already with the focus of generating as little waste as possible. Actually, the photo you see is from one of our events, and that table is the table where I'm talking to you from, so it's still the same place where I'm at right now. As this pop-up hobby was generating more and more interest, I mean, we would be selling out within 2 or 3 minutes of announcing new dates. Many people started asking about, when are you opening an actual place instead of being your dining room, something like a restaurant, so that they could come more often and enjoy our food, or that we could have more people at the same time having a meal with us. We thought about the idea for a long time and came up with an answer. Yes, we would like to open some kind of restaurant, but okay, if we're going to do it, let's do it in a way that really raises the bar, that really raises the standard in sustainability in Portugal. Why was that? Because, to be honest with you, I grew very tired of watching the same situation unfold time after time. I was fed up of going to restaurants or reading about them on the press, new restaurants coming up and promoting themselves as being local, seasonal, organic, these three buzzwords that nowadays you hear every day when related to restaurants. Not because that is a bad thing. I mean, it's very important that restaurants focus on local, seasonal, and organic. But my problem with it was that they weren't walking the talk. So 90% of the times, there was very little local, very little seasonal, very little organic products to be found in their menus. So this image is actually taken from the internet. Is not a new from a restaurant in Lisbon, but it's just to serve as an example of the kind of thing I was finding quite often. So you would have some organic cilantro, some that was local, some organic mushrooms that were actually imported, some organic tomatoes that happened to be imported as well, while other ingredients on the plate would come from elsewhere and were also grown following conventional farming practices. So in the end of the day, is this really local, seasonal, and organic? I was quite skeptical about it, and we weren't really satisfied with this being the standard for sustainability in restaurants in Portugal. So what did we do? We went down the rabbit hole and put together something that didn't exist before. And so that thing was opening the first restaurant in the world, actually, that combined two major commitments. Not having a garbage bin, so we would be zero waste, but there were already a few of these restaurants especially around Europe, maybe a handful of them. But also the first ones to combine that with working with 100% and 100% local and 100% organic ingredients. None of these handful of restaurants were doing that. And so for this to be feasible, we wrote a clear set of rules to be followed. And that's probably my main advice for someone who wants to start a business that's focused on being very strict about what they do. You need to set a really clear set of rules. Otherwise, if you're doing mostly organic, if things get complicated, soon enough, you're going to be buying mostly conventional. If you're doing mostly local, if local isn't available, next thing you know, 99% of your produce comes from far away. So the most important thing for us was this, that everything coming through the door had to be, 1, consumed, 2, upcycled. And by upcycle, I really mean turn into something even more valuable than it was in the first place. And actually, I have a funny story. I don't think I have the time for that. So I'm going to make it very simple. Recycling wasn't really an option for us from the first day. So I only got to know where we had the bins for recycling, because this is a building with 12 floors or something like that. There's a garage, and down the garage there are the bins for paper, paper, plastic, and glass, and then also for common waste. I only figured where they were when the pandemic started, because we had to use some paper that we didn't have before. So that was a surprise to me. And third, and more important maybe in this conversation, turn into compost. And I'm going to be talking about that. So if one thing didn't fit one or more of these options, it wouldn't just come in. So when you think about restaurants and closing the loop, there's still a missing link in our story. One that can actually be introduced with this picture. You know this movie, right? I know that many people don't have the camera on, but at least the ones that have. We're talking about WALL-E. It's a Disney Pixar movie, and it's a great metaphor actually for what we are discussing here. So the little robot on the left is just going around cleaning up trash on the Earth surface while humanity is actually gone already. It went to another planet. And Eve on the right side is deployed to scan the planet for signs of sustainable life. So you can see that she's white, black, and has blue eyes, right? So now pay attention to the following image. Tell me you see the similarities, right? You only need to nod like this. So Eva is our electric composter, and she's actually the missing link in our perfect loop. So this piece of equipment is able to turn food scraps and leftovers and pretty much all organic matter that we didn't have a use for into compost. And she does this within 24 hours using temperature, some paddles that keep on mixing or twisting and turning inside. And then there's also a culture, so microorganisms speeding up the process inside. So in the end, what we have left is a very strong fertilizer that can be used to grow new foods. So in the beginning, we were giving this compost to our farmers. The one you see in the picture with Maria is one of our farmers. He was taking it and then bringing back vegetables that were grown using that fertilizer. But then we also made an agreement with the Lisbon City Council, and we got access to a little piece of land, a little vegetable garden in one of the city's community gardens. And this was just 5 minutes walking from the restaurant. And then we started to grow some of our food ourselves. So among the most important rules we set was also the origin of our ingredients. And we set 2 clear radiuses, so 2 clear circles around the restaurant in Lisbon. So 50 kilometers for fresh produce, 500 kilometers for other ingredients. And if you do the math and look at the map, you start thinking of many, many, many things that don't exist inside these circles. We can talk about bananas. There's bananas in Madeira and the Açores, but you can see at the lower left side in the map, Madeira was quite far away from that circle. There's cacao, there's coffee, we're going to come back to coffee later. There's spices, cashews, you name it, coconuts. There's many, many products that didn't belong inside these radius. And knowing that we only work with plant-based ingredients, you can also imagine that a large part of these 500-kilometer circle is pretty much useless. Okay, there's seaweeds, and even Tânia already talked about seaweeds. But even that, the one we get is harvested in Aveiro. So it isn't really far from the shore. It's just inside the shore. So maybe, I don't know, half of the circle is pretty much useless for us. And in fact, we ended up going even stricter than that, because in Spain, within that radius, we didn't find ingredients that we couldn't find in mainland Portugal. So we decided to just stick to mainland Portugal. But here I want to maybe already introduce a comment about the discussion about bringing ingredients from far away and the impact it has. I mean, if we look at the numbers, and I know I'm advocating for 100% local, but actually we're doing this out of an educational standpoint. Because if we think about emissions, many times it might be less impactful to bring some ingredients from a bit far away rather than growing them ourselves. And I think one great example that I've seen is people nowadays, there's many people going away or drifting away from dairy. And for that reason, they start drinking all these plant-based milks. One of the most popular of them is almonds, right? And we know that we have almonds in Portugal, and that you can make milk out of almonds. So many people think, okay, it's more sustainable. I'm going to be drinking almond milk. But then if we introduce a layer of complexity to this, is it more sustainable to drink almond milk using Portuguese almonds that need a lot of irrigation? Or is it better to make oat milk with oats that come from Finland, which is on the other side of Europe, but don't need any irrigation? And if we look at the numbers, we see that the transportation footprint in the food chain is usually something around 8 to 10%. So it's very minimum sometimes compared to other impacts you might have. So this is my parenthesis about that discussion that we can go back after the presentation, because I think it's something that is relevant to many people. So with this and looking at the map, we basically made an effort to visit dozens of farmers and get to know the products, get to know their farming practices, how they manage their resources. We did our kind of personal certification to understand if there was a great fit or not. But there were some cases that we decided not to work with those people, with those businesses, because we weren't simply on the same page on very relevant issues. And a key challenge here was to get them to buy into the idea of working exclusively with reusable containers. So for fresh products, it's easy. I mean, people that work with farmers already know that they bring these heavy plastic or paper boxes that are sturdy. They can withstand a lot of weight, so it's easy to manage that. But for other products, it took a bit of creativity and actually some convincing in order to make it work. And I'm going to show you two examples. One of them is actually not that complicated. I mean, we wanted to use olive oil, of course, but we didn't want those 5-liter plastic bottles that are incredibly hard to wash. And so no farmer wanted to have those back and have to clean them, or even trust us to clean them before they would fill them again. So we realized the best option would probably be a stainless steel vat. This one has a 15-liter capacity, and the idea was to just circulate between us and the farmer. But I do love even more the story behind the bag on the right. So we found this organic chestnut farmer in Chaves, which is, if we go back to the map, is actually the product coming from the farthest from the restaurant. It's almost 450 kilometers away or something like that from Lisbon. And so we got in touch with him, and he was really excited about our principles, the way we were working, and said, okay, guys, just don't worry about me. I'll make it work. And we're a bit scary at first. So next thing we know is telling us to go to the bus terminal here in Lisbon in Sete Rios and pick up our order. So what did he actually do? He used this traditional natural sack that you see. He put 20 kilos of chestnuts inside, and he sent it via Rede Express, so the national bus network. And it just came in the trunk alongside the passenger's luggage with all the necessary information. You can also see a little piece of paper at the top. And so he thought a bit about it, and he just decided to cut that piece from an old box. And instead of using a pen, he even thought, okay, I'm going to be using a pencil to write the contact details, because he figured it would be more sustainable as well. I could also spend hours and hours here talking about our processes in the kitchen, but we don't have the time for that today. I just want to say one of the key elements is fermentation, but I guess Stéphane and Tânia would come up with the same idea, talking about innovation. Fermentation is a great technique because it allows us also to suspend time and extend the shelf life of products. Not only it makes things more delicious, but it helps with that. And so it helps also to fight food waste and to extend these products that would otherwise just degrade and rot if they were not consumed right away. And talking about creations, this is a rye coffee. So in Portuguese, centeio. We didn't have coffee, of course, because it comes from outside that radius. But we really wanted to have a drink that had that kind of feeling that coffee has. And so we used several byproducts we had in our kitchen from making sweeteners, for instance, and we decided to include them. And in the end, we got this really nice drink that, of course, there's no caffeine inside, but it still gives you that nice, warm, cozy feeling that you get after a meal. Not the caffeine kick, but everything else. But for us, sustainability wasn't just about ingredients and cooking techniques. It was about the entire experience. And so for our napkins, as you see with Maria on the left, we actually did a life cycle assessment and came to the conclusion we would only be better off using cloth napkins instead of recycled paper if they had up to 2 or 3 grams and they were reused at least 100 times. And that's why they are so small. Many people mistaken them for something that you would put your glass on top. So we had to do a bit of explaining on that. But they're enough for a single meal, at least for most people. And for those who wanted an extra napkin, we always have extra. In the middle, there's our table. It's made out of wood scraps from a very talented carpenter here in Lisbon. He makes tables for other restaurants in Lisbon, including Michelin star restaurants. And he had all these wood scraps in the corner in his warehouse, and we challenged him to make this. And also on the right side, I know it's not very common to see toilets in presentations, but please bear with me. We actually installed a piece of equipment in the bathroom that does a very simple job, and one that should be mandatory in all new bathrooms. I'm not even going to say in Portugal, I would say worldwide, wherever there's running water to be used, which is to collect rainwater from the sink and use it for flushing the toilet. It's very simple, but this piece is still very expensive because there are not many manufacturers doing this kind of work. So if you pay attention to what I've been saying, you might have noticed that I've been speaking about the restaurant in the past tense all the time. And this is because we decided to close it last year as a consequence of the pandemic. It's not because the business wasn't going well. In fact, we were profitable from day one. No question about that. Maria and I were the ones not going so well, simply because the pandemic forced us to become a normal restaurant. So you see that we had this long table and people didn't want to sit around a single table with strangers anymore. So we still pivoted to having multiple tables, and to, instead of having these private events, we started opening the door for dinner, but we were the ones not happy with it. We really craved this connection with people, having time to have conversations, to share knowledge and experiences, and that wasn't simply possible with all our attention going to the restaurant, so the work in the kitchen itself. So we made a tough decision, but one that had to be done, of dropping the restaurant to focus on the other areas of our business and our projects. And so today we are focused on education through courses, workshops, master classes, and other activities for companies and other organizations. We also provide consultancy services for those that are willing to implement these ideas in their organizations. And we still keep hosting some events like pop-ups, where we go back to the kitchen and still go back to our roots of serving people great foods that they can also trust. Our goal, as Cecilia mentioned in the beginning, is to help people make meaningful changes to their practices, and also to be more demanding of themselves. That's how we, all together can raise the bar and contribute to a more sustainable food sector. Because, in this moment right now, business as usual is not cutting it anymore. Not today, not in the futures. And restaurants, like other food businesses, must really be at the forefront of change. And that's the key message I want to leave you with today. And if we still have time, I'm open to all questions. Thank you very much.
Beautiful presentation. One question. From available in Portugal, if you could do the recommendation here. Someone is curious about how can I purchase that. And also,
I didn't get the question.
Oh, Mike, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it was just a connection that went down from your side, I guess. Okay,
so let's try again.
Yeah.
One of the participants wanted to know where he can buy the composter.
Okay, so there are actually a handful, probably, of companies selling that type of equipment now in Portugal.
Yes.
In terms of cost, if you Google compostor elétrico Portugal, there's probably several results on that. This one
for the tip.
Yeah, this one in terms of costs, at the time, I think it cost us 1,500 euros plus VAT. Okay. And this one has a capacity of 5 kilograms per day.
Okay,
so
which is something a restaurant at least would produce, but maybe not a normal household.
Yeah, this is actually like a domestic composter. For us, it was enough. We found a way to be very efficient in the kitchen and not having a huge amount of organic matter to compost in the end. But I would say for a mid-sized restaurant, probably it won't cut it. They will need to go a step ahead, a step above in terms of capacity.
And also, by 2023, all European countries should be separating their waste residues. Am I correct? But we are still not doing that. At least I'm not separating anything here at house, and I am aware of the amount of
I think I lost you again. You too, Tânia and Stéphane.
Yeah. Okay. Still is having a bad time with the internet.
Yes, maybe if I turn off the camera, you can hear me.
Yeah, I think so.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try like this. You can remember me. I look brunette with my big blue eyes. I'm kidding. I don't have blue eyes. We wanted to bring to the discussion. I mean, in this last webinar, we had to focus on the products, namely for example, the products that can be helping us in our daily lives, in our convenience, but also in the products we can make from scratch. Yeah. So these examples we saw here today are the examples we need in our daily lives, in our so from the convenience, we look for the supermarket shelves. We want the packaged products. We want the all year availability. We want the healthy and sustainable. But at the same time, we need to go back to our habits. We need to go look for solutions that might take us a little bit longer to cook, to prepare, but at the long time, they are actually the more sustainable solutions. Rui, this question is for you. How do you manage that in our daily lives, being so I'm missing the word, but being so strict in order to follow those rules? How do you cope with that, especially now that you have a baby in your house?
Yeah, I mean,
I had to mention the baby.
Of course, there are a lot of layers here to consider. One of them being, you don't have to do this like we were doing 100%, right? And if you do it 80%, you're already doing much better. Even if you do it 50%, you're doing much better than the average citizen, right? Even myself now, in the position in which I am right now, as you mentioned, as a father, I found myself quite often, drifting a bit away from that out of necessity. But I would pick up something that you mentioned earlier, that maybe we need to spend less time doing other things and more time doing things in the kitchen. We are so focused on work on one hand, but at the same time also on leisure. I mean, many conversations I have with friends and people that work also with food, if we dissect the time that they have away from work, many times they're spending 3 or 4 hours watching Netflix. Is that a valuable use of your time? Because then it depends on what you think. I mean, sometimes it feels nice to me as well, but maybe you can, take that time and dedicate a bit more of it to creating things for yourself from scratch in the kitchen. Going back, as someone I think also mentioned, going back to the roots. because in a way, what we were defending here is we take a step back and we pick up some habits that generations before us had, not because we, out of poverty or something, because in their case, in many situations, it was because they were poor and that they had to do whatever they could to feed themselves and to save money, but out of consciousness that there's an impact associated with all choices that we make, and in many circumstances, if we tweak a little bit our habits, not just the eating habits, but our habits in general, there's a lot of quick wins that we can get without sacrificing so much on convenience. And convenience, when it comes always at the expense of money, sometimes it's not convenience anymore. Because if I have to pay 30, 40, 50 euros a kilo for some kind of food, the convenience, I think it pans out a little bit, and then it's not so convenient anymore. And if you do the math in your head and you prepare a meal yourself, maybe you save, a lot of that money that you can use in other things as well. So there's a lot of moving pieces here that we can always tweak, and I'll always be advocating for spending more time in doing these basic tasks. They seem basic and a bit irrelevant when we are just very busy, but it's important for us as individuals, but also as part of big organizations, to allow people to have that time for themselves.
It's true. I think the message here we have to really think about is convenience might be killing us, and we have to rethink our daily habits in order to be actually healthier and be more sustainable in our everyday life. But this was pretty useful. I don't know if any of the other speakers, Stéphane, Tânia, would you like to add anything for this discussion? Your point of view, your experience?
I would like to add here about when the convenience versus money. For most of our clients, they don't have money and they don't have time. They don't have any of those, and because they are not so educated, and what they heard, or they are very educated, but they don't have a job that allows them to spend money or have spare time. So the job of a big retailer is also to address the needs of those people, the democratic stuff, because people that afford to go to a nice restaurant and have a good meal, they are not the ones that we are concerned. They are not the majority, and we have to work for those in our day-to-day. And of course, Food Lab is not also for those people. They cannot afford the food that costs 40 euros per kilo. But we need to look for the food concepts and then strap what's possible to make affordable for the majority of people. So we have to compromise sometimes in certain aspects, but we are really working on the health and the sustainable part, and but sometimes even on those we have to compromise to the affordable. And I'm talking about the price a lot because it's very, very important for most of our customers, our clients in Continente,
especially now at this time, because we are actually facing a rise in the goods prices. Stéphane, you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, just a final comment. concerning the innovation in the food industry for me, but it's a personal opinion. We have to keep it simple. So it means not reinvent things, not transform and add additional step or additional transformation or additional ingredients. If we keep it simple, we can balance taste, nutrition, cost, everything. So I'm trying in the project. It's not easy, but I'm trying to do that, to think differently and to be creative, because we have to think and to find creative solutions. Like fermentation, it's something very basic. It's something we know for all time. So, and there is things to do, and there is things to simplify process in a food industry also. And it will go in the good way, for sure.
Thank you so much. I think we are a little bit past our finishing time. I want to thank you, all our speakers, all our participants, all our previous speakers from the other webinars. It was a true pleasure to deliver this webinar cycle, to actually bring these themes to our awareness and to see some solutions we can have in our daily lives to make us think about what we need to change in order to actually be healthy and sustainable. And I think we saw that it is possible to be sustainable in order to be a new trend, like the healthy diets are. So I want to thank you, and see you next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Goodbye.